its cycles are very short. It's like high frequency trading, right? Whereas silver and gold happen over longer time frames. And I think to your point about silver as more of a commodity, I agree with you. That's how it's treated now because of its importance. Everybody, thanks for joining. Glad to see everybody here. What's everybody's impression of the conference so far?
Really good.
Good?
Exceeding expectations.
Good. And you said this was your first in-person, right?
Yep.
Cool. So comparing virtual to in-person, what do you like about the virtual?
That it's live,
Yeah.
but you don't get the human interaction.
Okay. What is your favorite session so far? Anybody have any thoughts?
The last one.
Which was?
Yours.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was good.
On the China and Texas presentation?
Yeah, it's real interesting.
Thank you. One of the things I'm trying to do, since we run conferences as well, is figure out what people find valuable. So if you have thoughts on that, just let me know.
I would like to see more, I know this is specifically a silver conference, but
Yeah.
you know, silver is so impacted by the macroeconomic situation that's going around the world, which is why I think your last presentation was so valuable, because you did touch on that, you know, China and what's going on there, and how that, you know, how we should view our investments in terms of what's going on with the big picture, the big macro picture. You know, so people like, you know, Lynn Alden and people like that talk about things that
George Gammon and Lynette Zhang and some of the other guys, yeah. So we did have, I felt like, and I didn't get to go to the whole conference because I've been busy in the room doing interviews, but we have incredible speakers here. I think it's been a great job by the organizers to put it together. And we did talk about cryptocurrency versus bullion yesterday in my roundtable. So that's kind of cool, comparing different investment asset classes. But do you think that we also need to have that backdrop of what's going on in the world in terms of the currency systems, geopolitically, that kind of stuff to make decisions around your investment strategy?
Yes, yeah, because I mean, you could have the best investments in the world if something happens in the world economy, like the Great Reset or whatever. You know, what happens to all of my physical silver and gold if I can't spend it or I can't sell it?
Right.
You know, what good is it? So
they try to tax it or delegitimize it in some way.
Yeah. And as far as the crypto thing goes, I know, again, this is focused on silver, but it seemed like it was mostly people that agree with each other on that panel, right? There wasn't really anybody that was, I'm all in Bitcoin, or I'm all in cryptocurrency, and gold stinks and silver stinks. So it's good to get that.
So you can make up your own, examine the arguments, make up your own mind, and get that more organically, see how people react to each other. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think Economic Ninja would have been a good addition to that because he is a big cryptocurrency guy, but he likes both. And I think in his talk right after ours, he did kind of touch on the value proposition of each. And he also did a really good job of giving us some of that macroeconomic picture. I know he talked about the debt markets and things like that, so I think he did a good job. Yeah.
But like the people that are pro-crypto up there didn't even touch on how everything's going digital. I heard that several times, everything's going digital, going digital, but they didn't even touch on how is that going to affect us in our daily lives, because the more things go digital, the more control the central powers get over our lives. So, I mean, do we really want to embrace it wholeheartedly just because it's going to make us money? But, you know, what are the costs involved?
So what we were missing from that debate, and that's pretty much on me because I'm the host, right? I could ask that question, what's the socio-political impact of what we were talking about? Not just what's the best asset class, what's the best investment, but how would things going on in the world affect us if we're going all digital, right? How does that change, you know, potentially our strategies, or how does it change how we feel about each of those investments potentially?
Right.
But I love the feedback. Thank you guys so much. Yes.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, you may.
I think it'd be interesting, in that debate, it would have been interesting to talk about future risks to Bitcoin versus silver and gold. You know, you have silver and gold, you have confiscation, you know,
taxation,
taxation, or you also have taxation could just go crazy on cryptocurrencies. to push them down when CBDCs come out. I think, yeah, it would be, you know, advantages and disadvantages. I really enjoyed Lobo's talk in terms of him seeing that there's a shift in silver tracking closer to the commodities and not as close to gold as a safe haven. So it's just interesting to see different perspectives. And I have a little theory that gold and Bitcoin can be a trading pair, that if you see gold hitting a bottom, you know, then cryptocurrencies might be hitting a top because people might be moving assets between the two.
We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, so.
That's a good point, and I do think that people do arbitrage between it. I think Economic Ninja in his session did talk about that as well.
Yeah, he did.
He talked about going into Bitcoin and then storing his money in silver and thinking that silver is the next cycle, but playing the ups and downs of that cycle. And what makes that work, I think, is because Bitcoin has more volatility. Its cycles are very short. It's like high frequency trading, right? Whereas silver and gold happen over longer time frames. And I think to your point about silver as more of a commodity, I agree with you. That's how it's treated now because of its importance. And I was speaking with Ian. I don't think he's in the room. He's with Art. So, oh, there you are. Different color shirt today. He has some really good statistics. You guys should talk to him. He runs Arc Silver about if we only build the EVs that the government want us to build now, if we run out of something like 42 years of
If we build 1
silver.
million EVs in 10 years, it would take roughly 42 years of all the silver production.
So doesn't that
Doesn't
automatically take silver out of the monetary conversation and make it a commodity?
So the
essentially?
industrial is more than 100%.
Yeah.
And the investment is running at 70, so I would argue it's actually going to swing to a monetary, back to a monetary interest. Whilst we're at liberty to purchase it with dollars.
Because of EV demand.
No, because, well, one, because investment demand is running at over 70% on
Yes.
average over the last 2 years, which is never happened before.
Right.
With industrial demand rising and with the online already planned industrial requirements are exceeding the total mine supply.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that because it's monetarised, it doesn't interest big money because it's at the moment, it's only 25 billion market, the whole end of production. And there's enough people in this conference who could just get their checkbook out and buy the whole end of production.
Yeah.
But one of my ideas is if us silver stackers got together and started purchasing mines. Because somebody...
And people are doing that, by the way.
Somebody gave it, oh great.
I'm involved in a group that's looking not at current mines, but we're looking at staking land.
Yes.
But we're looking like 15, 20 years in the future because
Yes.
you can get it super cheap.
Yeah.
And if you can find it, you're the next decade's production.
So if we do that,
Yeah.
that answers the question that somebody asked, I think, Andy Sheckman, what happens when an industry takes all of the silver? They outbid, or governments decide all silver's going to industry.
Yeah.
The only way we'll be able to keep sourcing it to private individuals is like that, what Rob said about purchasing stakes.
We had we did sort of an after-hours video with the Morgan report yesterday, David Morgan and David Smith, and we were talking about this, the industrialization of silver, but then the monetization that will come in for people that maybe can't afford gold or just want silver for investment, and how that could drive it upwards, maybe $600,000 if you just look at silver against monetary creation. So silver could get, I mean, the price could be super elastic, you know, in terms of its top end, if we see the industrial and the monetary component come in. I think you were going to have a...
Well, I was going to say, one big concern that I have going forward is government risk. Because of what you said about, you know, they've got all of these agreements that they've made, like Paris Accords and all these other kind of things about their climate initiatives and their climate goals, which are fairly unreasonable, you know, if you look at the math.
Irrational.
Irrational. But at what point does the government say, okay, now silver is a strategic metal, and we're going to set the price?
Okay, well, government is lazy and stupid. Okay, but they're not that stupid. So what they will do, they'll keystroke some dollars into existence, and they'll offer outrageous amounts for silver for people to sell their silver. So it's going to be incredibly easy to sell your silver.
That's right. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah, it'll be incredibly easy to sell it, but it'll be very hard to buy it.
Right.
Governments,
So you'll get locked out.
well, like you said, governments are lazy.
Yeah.
And so
They'll take the path of least
compensation
resistance.
takes a lot more
Yeah.
effort rather than just coercing you to give it up through higher prices.
Yeah, offering higher
taxation.
prices,
Yeah.
taxation.
They would rather not try to. I mean,
Yeah.
Disincentivizing
rather
trade by
not send
taxing
out
it,
to
yeah.
them, yeah.
And I've done a complete 180-degree turn on gun ownership. I used to be, "Oh, this is crazy, I lived in Brent until 2 years ago, what are these crazy Yanks doing shooting at each other?" But I know in my community in rural Idaho, we have lead slinging devices. No one's coming to take our silver. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
We'll shut the passes, there's some heavily armed.
By the way, I wanted to point out, I used to work for
Welcome to
Experian.
America.
I worked for Experian for a year as a cybersecurity manager in cybersecurity audit, and they're a British company. And it was funny because we had an office in North Texas, and they were talking about July 4th, Independence Day, and some of the British leadership were kind of making fun of us on our message board system for being so gun crazy. And I said, this started in Britain.
Yeah.
It started in the 16th century in Britain, where it was the longbow. And the monarchy wanted the British people, in case they got invaded, to be able to defend themselves, so they promoted the longbow, and that eventually worked its way into the gun. So all of the gun ownership rights in America came from British culture, which we absorbed. And that's why we have, so I basically printed all this history for them and said, this is your history. Now, you've given up some of your gun rights, that's on you, but that doesn't mean we have to. But we got this from you, so, be careful criticizing the Americans, because this wasn't originally our idea. It started in Britain. All right, we're going to jump into the presentation. Thank you guys so much for the conversation. We'll have time probably for more questions at the end. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. We appreciate it. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification button so you get those notifications when new content comes out. If you like what we're doing here, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Those members of Patreon will get extra special content delivered to them as well.